At my husband's funeral, my daughters refused to look at me. Until the will was read aloud, I sat in the third row, even though I had every right to be in the front. Nobody offered me a seat. Nobody met my eyes. And my own daughters, Emma and Harper, didn't even look at me. They sat beside each other like strangers to me, their hands in their laps, faces tense and distant. Harper wiped her cheek with a tissue, and Emma kept glancing at the casket like she was making sure he was really gone. Not once did they turn around. Hold on a moment before we move forward. Let us know where in the world you're watching from. And if you're loving these stories, don't forget to hit subscribe. Tomorrow's episode is going to be absolutely mind-blowing. People always assume the widow sits at the front, that she's comforted, that she's honored. But when the man in the casket spent decades rewriting who you were, even your own daughters start believing the version he created. I didn't expect flowers from them. I didn't expect tears. But I guess I still held on to the stupid hope that one of them would at least look at me. A simple glance. Nothing. The chapel was filled with his friends, colleagues, golf buddies, hospital donors, all those people who thought Richard Carson was a great man. Most of them didn't know what our house was like behind closed doors. They only knew the version he curated. Charming, composed, successful. The man who smiled at fundraisers and made speeches about family values. He hadn't spoken to me with warmth in years. I felt out of place in my own husband's funeral. The pastor stood and cleared his throat, beginning with the usual rehearsed lines about grief, about community, about celebrating life. I listened without listening. My mind was somewhere else entirely. It had been for a long time. Richard and I had been married for 37 years. 37. That's a lot of time to become invisible. In the beginning, we were partners. At least I thought we were. I supported him through med school, worked night shifts at the library, and later as an aide in a retirement home. I was the one who handled the kids, the house, the bills, while he climbed the ladder at the hospital. He told everyone we were a team. That word lost its meaning over time. He stopped coming home for dinner. Then he stopped asking how my day had been. Then he stopped saying goodnight. By the time Emma was in college and Harper in her last year of high school, Richard barely spoke to me unless it was logistics, bills, taxes, events we needed to show up to. He stopped celebrating my birthday, forgot our anniversary 3 times in a row, and once told a neighbor I was a bit cold these days, but she's always been practical. That's how he introduced me. Practical. Emma took after him, stoic, achievement-driven, sharp. She started, speaking to me like she was handling a report, short, efficient sentences. I'll be home for Thanksgiving. Can you transfer the tuition this week? She never asked how I was. Harper, at least, had some softness left. But Richard made sure to keep her close. She loved him. He used that. And over the years, bit by bit, the distance grew until my daughters saw me the same way he did, detached, removed, silent. I tried, for a while. I tried to sit with them. I cooked their favorite meals. I asked about their lives, but it always circled back to him. Dad said you were tired. Dad told us you didn't want to come. Dad said not to bother you. He painted me as someone they needed to manage around. And they believed it. Slowly they stopped including me, and I let it happen. I was too tired to keep trying, too tired to keep proving myself. So now, here I was, sitting alone at the funeral of the man who erased me, while the 2 girls I gave everything to pretended I didn't exist. The service ended, and people stood, whispered condolences. Some of them patted me on the shoulder out of obligation. One woman, I think her name was Carol, leaned over and said, "He always spoke so highly of you." I just nodded. I didn't know what else to do. The reception was worse. Harper and Emma stood together with their aunt on Richard's side. They laughed. They looked beautiful, composed, exactly how he raised them to be. And not once, did either of them walk over to me. I stood near the coffee table by myself, holding a plate of cold chicken salad I couldn't eat. I watched them. And still choosing to stay. That was the closest she had come to saying thank you. That weekend, Harper brought over a framed photo. It was the one of us at the cabin in 1998. I was holding her, Emma was standing in the sand, Richard was behind the camera. She handed it to me. "It's yours now." "I don't want it," I said. Her face shifted. "Why?" "Because I don't need proof of what I lived through." She nodded slowly, then took it back without offense. "I'll keep it," she said. "Maybe someday. I'll see it differently." One night, I walked through the hallway and stopped by the closet. I opened the same safe I had cleared months ago. It was nearly empty now, except for a small box of photos and Richard's original will. The old version, the one that had left everything to Harper and Emma. I took it out, held it in my hands. This version told a different story. One where I didn't exist. One where I had been erased. I didn't feel anger, not anymore, just clarity. I tore it in half, then again, until it was small enough to fit in the bottom of the trash bin. I closed the safe and walked away. That spring, I planted new flowers in the backyard. Nothing fancy, just a few simple rows along the fence. Harper helped me dig. Emma brought mulch. We didn't talk about Richard. We didn't talk about the past. We talked about what needed water, what might survive the summer, what might not. It was the most honest conversation we'd ever had, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I wasn't waiting to be seen anymore. They were finally looking, and I was no longer asking. I was deciding. Harper broke the silence. "I keep wondering if he wrote that letter to fix something, or to protect himself from guilt." "Maybe both," I said. Emma leaned back. "It doesn't fix what he did, but it made us see what we were blind to, and it made me realize something," Harper added. "That maybe it's not about fixing. Maybe it's about starting from where we are now." That was the first thing all three of us agreed on, and for now, it was enough. 3 months passed. The house didn't look different, but it felt different. There was less noise in my head. I wasn't walking around waiting to defend myself from someone who wasn't there anymore. Emma and Harper came by most weekends now. Not always together, sometimes separately, sometimes for a meal, sometimes for 10 minutes. But they came. That was new. Harper started leaving things behind on purpose. A book, a sweater, a bag of groceries she didn't need. Emma brought over tax forms one afternoon and stayed to ask me about a childhood memory she swore she imagined. It turned out it was real. I had the pictures to prove it. I didn't press them. I didn't ask for more than what they were willing to give. But slowly, steadily, they started giving more. One Sunday, we went to the beach cabin. I hadn't been there since Richard passed. I debated selling it for months. I even had a real estate agent ready, but something kept stopping me. I think I wanted to go there once without him, just to see what it would feel like. Harper drove. Emma brought snacks. I packed the old keys and a copy of the deed, now in my name. We got there in the afternoon. The cabin was exactly as I remembered. Same old paint, same creaky front steps, same chipped glass panel on the back door that Richard never fixed. For the first time, it didn't bother me. We stepped inside and opened the windows. The air was stale, but the breeze helped. Harper walked through each room slowly. Emma opened the drawers in the kitchen like she was looking for proof we used to exist there. We didn't talk about him. Nobody brought up the years we spent there as a family. Nobody mentioned the last time we visited. There were too many pieces of him in that place, and none of us were ready to name them out loud. But we stayed. We made coffee. We sat on the porch. We said nothing for a while. Then Harper broke the silence. "If you ever want to turn this into something else, like a space for women or a retreat, I could help you write the grant." I looked at her. "You think people would come?" "I think they already need it," Emma added. "It wouldn't take much. Just a name, a purpose. You'd be surprised how far people will go for a place that makes them feel safe." I didn't commit, but I didn't say no. A few weeks later, I met with the lawyer again. Mr. Baines had been handling everything efficiently since the funeral, but this time it wasn't about Richard's estate. It was about mine. I updated my own will. I made the instructions clear: no ceremonies, no obligations, no performances. I split everything equally between Emma and Harper, but I added a clause that they'd need to sit down together and agree on how to maintain the beach cabin before either of them could take ownership. It wasn't about money. It was about what they'd have to do to earn it together. I also created a small scholarship fund in my name. Not in Richard's, not under the family foundation he once bragged about. Just my name, for older women returning to school after family life delayed everything. When I signed the paperwork, Mr. Baines looked at me for a moment longer than usual. "You've handled all this quietly," he said. I nodded. "I've had enough noise." One afternoon, Emma stayed behind after Harper left. She didn't speak right away, just helped me fold a blanket that had been left on the couch. She smoothed the corners, made it perfect. Then she looked at me. I was angry when the will was read. You know that. I remember. I thought you'd manipulated him, that you somehow convinced him to leave everything to you out of spite. I know. I don't think that anymore. I said nothing, Emma continued. I think he gave you what he knew you'd earned, even if he never said it out loud. I looked at her but didn't smile. I wasn't ready for that. He used to tell me that strength was about control, she said. I believed that for a long time. And now? Now I think it's about knowing when to let go. Always the one holding the camera or setting something in the background. Harper paused on one photo from Emma's high school graduation. Richard stood center, proud. Emma held her diploma. I stood just behind them, holding Harper's coat. Didn't even remember you were there that day, Harper said softly. I was. I ironed her gown that morning, took the pictures, sat alone in the second row because Richard said he had reserved the seats. Harper frowned. I thought we saved you a seat. He told me you chose to sit farther back. I didn't respond. She was seeing it now, and that was enough. On Friday night, Harper asked if she could stay over. We made dinner. Nothing fancy, just pasta and garlic bread, and ate at the kitchen table like we used to when Richard was on call. It had been years since we'd done that. She laughed at how bland the sauce was. You never liked cooking, she said. No, but I did it. Because he expected it? No, because I knew you needed it. She nodded, quietly chewing. Later we watched a show she recommended, and when the final episode ended, she didn't move to leave. Instead, she asked, "Can I sleep in the guest room?" Of course. As she headed upstairs, she turned back. Thanks for not throwing all of us away, even when we didn't see you. I didn't answer, but the way I slept that night, waking up without heaviness on my chest, was answer enough. The next morning, I found Harper in the kitchen already dressed. She had made coffee and was scrolling through something on her phone. She looked up. I talked to Emma this morning. And? She's still angry. But it's not the same anger. It's less about you, more about him. I nodded. That's progress. She wants to come back. Not today, but soon. I took a sip of coffee. She can take her time. Harper looked at me. You're different now. Maybe I'm just finally myself. That afternoon, I opened the safe in the hall closet for the first time since Richard's funeral. Inside were stacks of documents, tax returns, insurance policies, investment records. I pulled everything out, one envelope at a time, and laid them across the dining table. Harper helped. We reviewed every page. Bank accounts I didn't know existed. A second life insurance policy in my name I had never been told about. A folder labeled Education Plans, with funds still active under Harper and Emma's names. Another folder with copies of real estate, documents including the beach cabin deed. He never told me he kept it in your name, Harper said, looking at the signature. He probably didn't want you to know. What would have happened if he'd died without changing the will? You would have inherited most of it, and you would have walked away. I nodded. I was prepared for that. Harper looked at the papers again. Do you want to sell the cabin? No. She looked surprised. I'm not keeping it for the memories, I added. I'm keeping it because for once I get to decide what stays. Emma came by 10 days later. She didn't ring the bell. She just knocked. Once, and stood there, unsure of how to start. I opened the door. Come in. She walked in slowly. No blazer this time. No heels. Just jeans, a sweater, and a quiet face. Harper was in the kitchen, already expecting her. Hi, Emma said to her, unsure of how much warmth to offer. Hi, Harper replied. Want coffee? Emma shook her head. No, thanks. They sat. I stayed quiet. Emma finally turned to me. I've been talking to someone, a counselor, trying to sort through everything. That's good. She said I'm grieving a version of Dad that wasn't fully real. And I think she's right. I thought I knew him, but I only knew the parts he chose to show me. I nodded. Emma continued. I also realized that I blamed you because it was easier. It let me keep believing he was perfect. Harper stayed quiet. Emma took a breath. I don't expect things to go back to normal. I don't even know what that looks like, but I want to rebuild, if that's possible. I looked at both of them. I'm not asking for apologies. I'm asking for honesty. If you're here, be here. If you're angry, say so. I won't lie to you, and I won't pretend nothing happened. Emma nodded. I can live with that. Later that evening, the three of us sat on the back porch. It wasn't a big moment. Nobody cried. Nobody gave a speech. We just sat there, wrapped in blankets, drinking tea, watching the sky change. Did you ever confront him? I did, the first time I found a receipt in his jacket pocket, a hotel 30 minutes from home. I asked him. He said it was for a conference, but he was too calm, too practiced. And you just accepted that? No. I stopped asking after a while because I knew the truth, and I knew he'd deny it. Emma stood up and walked to the window. Her posture didn't change, but I saw the shift in her shoulders. Something cracked. She didn't cry. That wasn't Emma, but when she turned around, her voice shook. He told us you were the distant one. I know. He said you had checked out, that you didn't care anymore. I know that too. And we believed him. Said nothing. Emma crossed her arms. I feel like I don't know anything about my own family. That's because your father was very good at telling stories that made him look like the hero. And I stopped correcting them because nobody wanted to hear my side. I would have. No, I interrupted gently. You wouldn't have. You were a child. You trusted him. And I wasn't going to use you as a referee. Emma looked around the house again. Harper said you have photos. They're on the table. Look. She walked over to the box and started flipping through the stack. Birthdays, vacations, school projects. Most of them with me in the background. Setting the table, holding Harper's hand, standing at the edge of the frame. Emma held one up. This was in Michigan. Summer of 2003. You had just lost your first tooth. She examined the photo. I was in it, holding a towel, smiling toward her. Richard wasn't in that one. You were there, she said quietly. I always was. 3 days passed before I heard from either of them again. Then Harper called. She didn't even say hello. Emma came to see me. We talked. And she's processing. Like me, but she's angry. And it's not just at him anymore. That sentence sat heavy. She's mad at you too, Harper continued. Because she thinks you should have said something sooner. That maybe if you had pushed back, things wouldn't have ended like this. She's not wrong to feel that way. I told her you were surviving, not living. I felt something shift in my chest. Thank you. Harper exhaled. I told her I'd be coming by again. You're always welcome. When Harper came over that weekend, she brought a manila envelope. She laid it on the table and opened it. Inside were printed emails dated years back, forwarded confirmations of his travel, inconsistencies in timing, calendar appointments that didn't match the stories he told us. I found these in his email archive, she said. After the will was read, I requested access to his accounts. I didn't even know what I was looking for, but once I started, it was obvious. I looked through them. It was all there, carefully veiled but not erased. lies wrapped in just enough detail to look legitimate. He built a version of himself we all admired, Harper said, and it wasn't real. He built it so he wouldn't have to face what he'd done to us. Or to me. She nodded. I wanted to hate you for a long time, because I thought you gave up on being our mother. But I think now, you were the only adult in the house. That was the first time I cried in front of her in years. On Sunday night, Emma sent me one final text before a long silence. I don't know how to repair this, but I'm thinking about everything. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I sat in the quiet afterward and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not peace. Not yet. But a shift. The balance of who tells the story was finally changing, and this time, it wasn't his. A full week passed after Emma's last message. She didn't text again, didn't call, and I didn't reach out. There are certain silences that don't mean absence, they mean calculation. And I knew Emma was processing everything the only way she knew how. Quietly, privately, on her terms. Harper came by twice in those 7 days. The second time she brought a photo album she had pulled from her childhood closet. This was always in my room, she said. I never really opened it. We sat on the living room floor. She turned the pages slowly. The photos were mostly of her and Emma. Birthdays, recitals, school events. In some, Richard stood smiling next to them, arms around their shoulders. I was in fewer of them, always off to the side. It feels different in here. It is. She hesitated at the door. I'm sorry for not asking more questions, Mom. I really am. I nodded, but didn't say, it's okay. It wasn't, but I could see she meant it. She stepped outside, and as I closed the door, I stood there for a few seconds longer than I needed to, because something had shifted. That night, Emma called again. I heard Harper came over. Yes, she told me you two talked. I waited. She also told me about the weekends he didn't come home. I didn't know that. There was a lot you didn't know. Emma was quiet. I'm not saying I believe everything, but I'm starting to think maybe I didn't see things clearly. I didn't answer. I wanted her to say it without me pulling it out of her. She continued. Dad had this way of steering the conversation. I thought he was protecting us from your distance, but maybe he was protecting himself from the truth. I stayed quiet. I don't know what to do with that. You don't have to do anything. Just sit with it for a while. She didn't argue. Can I come by next week? Yes, I said. You can. After the call, I went upstairs and opened the closet in the guest room. There, on the shelf, was a small box of things I had packed away long ago. Cards from the girls, drawings, notes from teachers, little pieces of motherhood. Pieces I'd kept even after I'd been pushed aside. I sat on the floor, holding them in my hands, not crying, just breathing. Because the weight wasn't gone. But it was shifting, and for the first time in a very long time, it was finally starting to move in my direction. Emma showed up on a Thursday afternoon. She sent a text that morning. I'll come by after work. I want to talk. When I opened the door, she stood there in slacks and a light jacket, clutching her phone like it was some kind of shield. Her face was tense, not angry, but careful. That was always Emma's way. Controlled, composed, filtered. Come in, I said. She stepped inside and looked around, as if seeing the house for the first time. Her eyes drifted to the kitchen table, then the staircase, then the family photos on the sideboard. Her expression didn't soften. Do you want something to drink? I offered. No, I'm fine. She stayed standing, which told me everything. I walked back toward the kitchen and sat. She finally sat down across from me but didn't put her phone away. I talked to Harper again, she began. She told me more about what you two discussed. I nodded once, waiting. She's been reevaluating a lot. So have I. But I want to make one thing clear before we keep going. That sentence was a warning. Emma looked at me straight on. I still loved Dad. Despite everything I've heard now, he was a good father to me. He was present. He was consistent. And I'm not going to pretend that wasn't true just because I've learned things I didn't know. I didn't flinch. I'm not asking you to erase your memories, but I also don't want to be lied to again, she said. So I'm going to ask questions, and I want answers that aren't sugar-coated or filtered to protect me. Then, ask. She folded her hands as if preparing for a cross-examination. Did you and Dad ever talk about separating? Yes, she blinked. When? Twice. Once when you were in high school, once after Harper left for college. What stopped you? You two, I said plainly. And money. Emma sat back. What do you mean? I didn't work. During most of the marriage, I took care of the house, supported his career, raised you both. He controlled all of our finances. I had no income of my own. That can't be right. I met her eyes. I didn't have access to our investment accounts, not without his approval. She didn't speak. He kept things separate, always. Even when we were married. It wasn't until the will was read that I found out how much he had. Emma looked down, thinking hard. So, you stayed married because you didn't have an exit. I stayed because I thought it was better for you two if we stayed a family. I thought it would give you stability. And yes, I was afraid. I didn't know where I would go or what I would live on. So I made peace with it. Did he cheat on you? I didn't answer right away. Emma looked at me. I'm asking because I need to know what kind of man I'm defending. I said it without dramatics. Yes, her face didn't change, but her hands clenched. How many times? I never kept count. The only thing I had left was the truth, whether they wanted to accept it or not. I left the photo box open on the kitchen table. I didn't arrange the pictures. I didn't need to. Anyone with eyes could see what they showed. Years of my presence, quiet and consistent. Years no one asked about. By the next morning, Harper had texted, "Can I come over? I want to see the letter again." I stared at her message for a full minute, then typed back, "Yes, anytime." She showed up 2 hours later, wearing jeans and a college hoodie, no makeup, hair pulled back like she hadn't slept well. I opened the door and saw her eyes were red. She didn't say hi right away, just stepped inside and went straight to the counter where the letter still sat. I stayed quiet. She picked it up carefully, sat down, and read it again, word for word, slowly. Her lips moved just slightly as she mouthed each sentence. Then she set it down and looked at me. "He wrote that to you?" she asked, like she still wasn't sure it was real. I nodded. Her eyes were wide, like something inside her had shifted. But she didn't know what to do with it yet. I didn't think. He was capable of that kind of honesty. I didn't respond. Harper leaned back in the chair, hands in her lap. Emma thinks it was manipulation, that maybe he wrote it just to get back at her, or to punish us, or something. I looked at her. "Do you think that?" She shrugged, then shook her head. "No, I think he knew, and maybe he just couldn't admit it while he was alive." She was quiet for a long time. Then, "Why didn't you ever say anything, Mom?" I hesitated. What would I have said? I don't know. That you were unhappy. That he was shutting you out. That you were... She stopped herself. That you needed us. I sat across from her. Would you have listened? She didn't answer. I wasn't supposed to need anyone, I said. That's the role I was given in this house. Make everything work. Keep everything calm. Smile. For the holidays. Listen. Absorb. And when I didn't do those things the way he wanted, he told you I didn't care, that I was distant, that I preferred it that way. Harper looked down. He said you wanted the guest room. I took the guest room after he stopped coming home on weekends. She looked up quickly. Wait, I nodded. Where did he go? I exhaled. I stopped asking. He said it was work, conferences, late meetings. After a while, I just accepted it. She pressed her palms flat on the table. He made it sound like you were always the one pulling away. I didn't speak. I could see her doing the math in her head. replaying things she'd accepted without question. "I think he told us what made him feel less guilty," she said. "He made himself the victim." I stayed quiet. Harper looked around the kitchen. "I remember sitting right here. I was 10. He made waffles that morning because you were gone. And he told us that you needed space, that you were tired of always being the one in charge. I had taken my mother to an emergency room that morning. She had fallen." Harper blinked. "He didn't mention that." "Of course not." We sat in silence again. Then she asked, "Why did you stay?" I looked at her, and for the first time, she didn't look angry, just confused. "I stayed because I thought it would protect you," I said. "I thought if I left, it would confirm everything he told you about me, that I was selfish, that I abandoned the family. So I stayed, thinking maybe it would be better to disappear slowly than to disappear all at once." Her face crumpled slightly. I didn't reach for her. She stood abruptly and paced the kitchen. "We should have seen it. I should have seen it. You were a child," I said. "It wasn't your job." But I believed him. I believed everything he said. "That wasn't your fault." She turned toward me. "Did Emma know any of this?" I shook my head. "No. I don't think she ever questioned him." Harper looked at the letter again. "I don't know how to feel about this. I mean, I'm glad he admitted it. But it's too late. He's gone." I nodded. "It's late, yes. But I think he wrote it because part of him knew it wasn't fair. Maybe he wanted you to see the truth, even if he couldn't say it out loud. While he was still alive." She picked up the letter and folded it carefully. "Do you mind if I make a copy?" "Of course not." As she stood to leave, she looked around the kitchen one more time, then back at me. Just wanted to ask, if you knew he made those changes?" "No," I said honestly. "I didn't." She was quiet for a moment. "You're saying you had no idea Dad changed the will and wrote that letter?" "Yes, Harper. I'm saying. I didn't know. I found out when you did." She exhaled through the phone. "It just doesn't make sense." "I agree." She paused again. "Emma thinks you pushed him to do it." "I didn't. She thinks maybe you guilted him somehow. That maybe you told him we didn't include you enough. That we were— I didn't speak to him about the will. I didn't even know he was sick, Harper." Silence. I could feel her trying to process that. Maybe for the first time in years, she realized how far apart we'd drifted. I don't understand why he'd write something like that," she finally said. "He always said we were a close family, that you were hard to connect with, that you preferred your space." "Did you believe him?" "I don't know," she whispered. "I guess I did." After the call, I sat on the edge of the guest bed, the one that hadn't been used in years, and let my hands rest on my knees. That phrase kept replaying in my head. He said you preferred your space. What a clever way to disappear someone. He never yelled at me. He never insulted me. But he talked about me in small ways, subtle, quiet undermining. Over time, it added up. I became the withdrawn wife, the cold mother, the one who didn't try hard enough. It didn't matter that I was the one who drove them to every appointment, signed every permission slip, stayed up when they had fevers, handled everything when he was away on conferences. He gave them a story. And they believed it, because it was easier. And now, that story had cracked. 2 days later, Emma came by. She didn't text first. She just rang the bell around noon. I opened the door and saw her standing there in a blazer and slacks like she was walking into court. Her expression was hard, professional. Not like a daughter, like someone preparing for a negotiation. "I'd like to talk," she said. "Come in." She walked past me and sat in the same chair Richard used to sit in when he watched his crime shows at night. She crossed her legs and leaned back, arms folded. "I read everything," she said. "The trust documents, the change in beneficiaries, the letter. I talked to an attorney. There's no fraud. You're the sole beneficiary." I nodded. "I still don't get it," she continued. "He never mentioned this. Never." "He didn't mention a lot of things." She looked at me. unblinking. You think he owed you everything? No. I think he owed me honesty, at the very least. Emma looked away. I just don't understand why you two couldn't figure it out. You made it so cold for all of us growing up. I stiffened. Cold? I asked carefully. You were always distant, always in the background. He was the one who helped me with schoolwork. He took us on trips. You barely talked to us sometimes. I felt something break a little inside. Emma, I said, my voice calm. Do you remember who packed your school lunches every morning? She paused. Who sat in the car with you when you had panic attacks in 6th grade? She shifted in her seat. Who made you and Harper dinner when Dad had night shifts for 6 weeks straight? Who went to every parent-teacher conference while he flew out to hospital board meetings? She didn't answer. You remember his voice more clearly, I said, because he spoke louder. But I was there. I was always there. Emma looked away, and I saw the first real crack in her composure. He told us things, she said quietly. That you were tired, that you didn't want to be around, that you were depressed. I was tired, I said, because I was doing everything he didn't want to do. She stood abruptly. I need time. I've had 37 years, I said. Take all the time you want. She didn't slam the door on the way out. She just closed it gently. But the sound echoed through the house. Later that evening, I sat at the kitchen table and opened a box of old photographs. There were dozens of them. Emma as a baby on my lap, Harper with her head on my shoulder, me standing at school plays, birthday parties, graduations, always a little to the side, never the focus. But there, I had never tried to prove anything before. I never wanted to. I thought they would see it, feel it, know it. But now I realized Richard made sure they didn't. And now, trying to figure out what it was I had done. What exactly did he tell them? Later that afternoon, as the crowd thinned and people began to leave, the family attorney approached. Mr. Baines. He was old school, quiet, always wore that awful brown suit. Mrs. Carson, he said, if you're available, we'd like to proceed with the reading this evening. The girls are here, and it may help with closure. I nodded. That word, closure, meant nothing to me. The reading was set for 6:00 at the firm's office downtown. Emma and Harper didn't acknowledge me when I arrived. Emma looked annoyed. Harper looked hesitant. But neither spoke. We all sat in the conference room, the air stale, the carpet beige and stiff. Mr. Baines shuffled the papers, put on his glasses, and started the process. He explained that Richard had updated his will a year prior, and then, again, just 4 weeks before his death. That part caught Emma's attention. She sat up straighter, I noticed. Then Mr. Baines began reading, and I sat there, bracing myself for the moment my name wouldn't appear. But it did. And not just a mention. He left everything to me. The house, the savings, the stocks, even the beach cabin in Michigan I thought he'd already transferred to Harper. Mr. Baines paused and said, "There's also a personal letter to Mrs. Carson." He asked that it be read aloud. Emma tensed. Harper turned toward me for the first time in days. Mr. Baines opened the envelope, unfolded the paper, and read. To Eleanor, I've failed you in many ways. I made you out to be someone you're not, and for that, I'm sorry. You were the one who held this family together. You were the one who never walked away, no matter how cold I became. I see that now. And I want our daughters to know it, even if they refuse to believe it. You deserve peace. This is my last attempt to give you that. Silence. No one spoke. Harper looked stunned. Emma looked like she'd swallowed a nail. I didn't cry. I didn't gloat. I didn't say a word. I just sat there, finally, seen. And I knew at that moment, everything had changed. The room emptied slowly after the reading. Mr. Baines offered to make copies of the will, but Emma was already gathering, her purse with fast, agitated movements. Harper hadn't moved. She just sat there, her eyes unfocused, arms crossed, not looking at anyone in particular. I remained seated, waiting for them to speak first. They didn't. Emma finally stood. "This is some kind of mistake," she said, looking directly at Mr. Baines, as if I wasn't even in the room. "My father would never do this. He told me the house was going to Harper. The accounts were going to be split. I'm afraid he changed the documents in full compliance with legal standards," Mr. Baines replied calmly, keeping his eyes on the folder. Emma's voice sharpened. "And the letter? That sounded nothing like him." Mr. Baines didn't respond. He didn't need to. Emma knew it wasn't a forgery. She just didn't want to admit what it meant. "Not yet. I want a copy of everything," she said. "And I want time to review it with my attorney." Harper stood next, more slowly, still avoiding my eyes. "I'll drive you," Emma told her, already halfway to the door, but Harper hesitated. She looked back at me for half a second, just a flicker, and then followed her sister out. They didn't say goodbye. I drove home in silence, the kind of silence that sits behind your ribs, the kind that doesn't need words to weigh you down. The house was too quiet, same furniture, same hallway, but it felt different now, like it had been peeled back. I placed the letter on the kitchen counter and stood there for a long time just staring at it. 37 years of marriage, all boiled down to 5 sentences. I don't know if it was guilt or clarity that pushed Richard to write it. Maybe it was both. But what mattered now wasn't what he said. It was what it changed. The next morning, I made coffee, opened my email, and saw Emma's name already sitting in my inbox. Subject: Review of estate documents. It was a short email. She wanted PDFs. Said she was consulting someone familiar with estate law. There was no "Hi, Mom," no "Hope you're okay." Just a request. A demand, really. I forwarded the files without a word. Half an hour later, Harper called. I didn't expect that. I let it ring 3 times before answering. "Hello?" She sounded unsure. "Hi,